Hello, this is Unit 6, Lesson 1. We're looking at multiplying and dividing rational expressions. All right, so we're talking about polynomials, quadratics, cubics, and linear expressions. The big thing here is factoring and then simplifying. Okay, so the first step, as I mentioned, is we'll be factoring the numerator and denominator. If wait for it. If the leading term is negative, factor out a negative 1. Okay? And you got to be careful with that. It's kind of tricky. Remember, the leading term is the one with the highest degree, so sometimes it might be out of order. So be careful with that. Okay? So once you factor everything completely, then you can cancel common factors. You can only cancel factors. You cannot cancel terms. For example, 4x squared plus 2. 4x squared is a term, and 2 is a term. Okay, you got to be careful just starting to cross off numbers and what's in the denominator and stuff like that. Okay, let's say this was an x down here. Okay, you cannot cancel terms like I showed here on the right. You can only cancel if you're multiplying. Okay, or if you can factor something out. All right, so let's look at these first examples. So by leading term, this negative 4x squared is a leading term because it's the term with the highest degree in that expression. Okay, so we can factor out a negative 1 in addition to the 4x. So I'm going to factor out a negative 4x, and I'm going to change the order. All right, so that leading term is now first. So if I factor out a negative 4x squared, or if I factor out a negative 4x from negative 4x squared, I'm left with x. If I factor out a negative 4x from positive 4x, I get a negative 1. So that's that top left part. Okay, now we're just factoring trinomials. All right, so you've got x plus 3, x minus 1, that's on the bottom. Let's factor top right, x plus 3, x minus 2. If you still need help with factoring some of these, okay, you need to come talk to us. We can either give you some extra practice or help you with it. By this point, this is stuff we hope everyone can do. Okay? But if you don't know how to factor, this unit will be very challenging. There's factoring just about every lesson. Okay? So now you can factor. So start top left and look for common terms. You only cancel top and bottom. You can't cancel terms on the same level. You're multiplying across. Okay? So I've got this 4x here. I can cancel that with this 4x over here. This is really like one big fraction since I'm multiplying. X minus 1 cancels with x minus 1. Notice these are factors because there's parentheses here. I'm not adding up terms and canceling. Okay, x plus 3 is a factor on top. X plus 8 is a factor on the bottom. I'm canceling that out. All right, so what am I left with? I have this negative still on top there, top left. I've got negative x minus 2. Negative times quantity x minus 2. All right, that's what we're looking at for those. So let's look at this next one. X plus 3 over 8x cubed minus 1. All right, times 4x squared plus 2x plus 1. So I can write this over 1. So I'll rewrite it. X plus 3 over 8x cubed minus 1 times 4x squared plus 2x plus 1 over 1. Okay? Now you're thinking, Mr. Hilliard, this looks factored to me. Well, not quite. Well, you can't factor top right here. I can factor right here. That's a difference of perfect cubes. So I've got x plus 3 over 2x minus 1 times 4x squared plus 2x plus 1. That's on the left now, and then I'm rewriting what was on the right. Okay, and you're probably asking, Mr. Hilliard, where'd you come up with this? This is like magic math. All right, this is unit 4, lesson 5. You've just got to know these. Okay, like you did on the midterm. You just have to know them. There's a pattern you have to follow. Sum and difference of perfect cubes. This is the pattern. All right, so we're looking at it now. This cancels with this, and I'm left with x plus 3 over 2x minus 1. Again, I can't cancel out these x's here. These are terms, not factors. I'm adding x plus x to 3. I'm subtracting 1 from 2x. I can't just cancel those. You can only cancel when you're multiplying. All right. So try number 1. Pause the video, and we'll have the answer when you come back. All right. So you look at the work here. In the blue is the first step. We did our primary factoring there, took out that negative 3x. In the red, I'm factoring this 9x squared minus 1. That's a difference of perfect squares. You've got to reduce that. So you should get negative times, or you could say negative 1 if you want, quantity 3x minus 1 squared. All right. Again, you can't cancel 3x minus 1 here. You're multiplying those across. So you can write it as squared. You could just leave it as factors if you want as well. That's fine. So let's look at dividing. Okay, so dividing is very similar to multiplication, but there's one extra step. So dividing fractions. We need to multiply by reciprocal of the divisor. The divisor is usually the one on the right in this case, or the one on the bottom over here. Okay. So I'll do the top two and leave the next one for you guys. You can check the bottom one in class. Okay, let's just do the top two right now. If you feel like you get the idea, go ahead and work through it. So what I mean is you do 5x. I'm going to kind of factor as I go. So 5x over 3 times x minus 4. And then I flip the divisor, so the denominator is now on top. And now I'm multiplying. So now it's the same as what we did on the front. All right. So I'm going to finish writing this out and factor everything else. So on the top, this is x minus 4 times x minus 2 over x times x minus 2. So work from left to right up top and cancel terms. So what do we have? 5x. I can cancel this x with this x. X minus 4 can cancel with that x minus 4. X minus 4 cancels x minus 2. I'm left with 5 on the top and 3 on the bottom for 5/3. All right. So let's do the one on the right over here. It's the same kind of problem. It's just written differently. All right. So we call this a complex fraction. There's 3 fractions in one here. All right, so I've got x minus 3 over 9x squared. And I'm going to write this so it's written the same way as the last one we just did, just so you can see. All right, so that's all it is. It just changes how it looks. All right, and now I'm going to factor, so careful here. This x here is the lead term. That's x to the first. That's larger. X to the first is larger than x to the 0. This is 3x to the 0 power. Okay. So be careful with that. So I'm going to factor out a negative 1 over there when I get there. So x minus 3 over 9x squared times, I'm going to flip this and factor that 1. So I got 18x on top. and I'm factoring out that negative 1, and I got x minus 3 on the bottom. That's what happened to this one. And now I'm multiplying. All right, so again, you got one big fraction. X minus 3 cancels with x minus 3. 18 and 9, I'm left with 2 on top. So on top, I'm left with 2x over x squared. Well, this x and one of these x's down here can cancel, so I'm left with 2 over x, but I still have this negative. Simplifies to negative 2 over x. Okay, but you wouldn't be able to do that if you didn't factor out the negative 1 here. Okay, that's dividing, so it's really just one extra step for multiplying. All right, so try number 2 and check your answer when you get to class. All right, we'll see you then.